For the 29th of June. We'll do our karakia. Would you like to lead us, Jeff, to start with? We'll join you.
Kia ora koutou, ata Māori. Let's do this together. Toru whā. Whakatakata hou ki te uru. Whakatakata hou ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki te uru. Tātara ki tāu. He hi ake ana. Te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei, mauri ora. Kia ora.
Thank you. We have no apologies this morning. We have Councillor Leggett joining us online from London. No requests for public forum. Any conflicts of interest this morning? No. Confirmation of minutes from the council meeting on the 18th of May and the extraordinary council meeting on the 8th of June. I'll move them both. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Johnson. Any issues? All those in favour? All those against? Carried. My report this month. I'm shocked actually we were halfway through the year on the countdown to spring after the longest day. It's been Porirua Business Month. We've had Love Local, obviously. We had 5,000 through that event. Then we followed it on with the Woman in Business, which Kylie did for me as I wasn't well, which thank you. Apparently it was a wonderful evening. I've heard from everybody. We had our BA5 Chamber event with Kevin Bigger. Then we had Helmets Talk from Ngāti Taua. That was a great evening. And then the Pacifica Business event last Sunday. And of course, Brad Olsen finishes off tomorrow. Other events I've been to this month have been the Mana Probus turned 25 with a high tea. The Porirua St John Youth, Sam Bishop and I joined their emergency management session and handed out some awards. And the kids in that all go for an emergency. They're highly organised. I joined the Pacific Choir Connection. They've gone off to America for the barbershop finals. They're representing New Zealand. We had the Plymouton Kindergarten Midwinter Swim. Kylie and I went to that, but I definitely did not swim, not brave enough, sorry. Joined the Ngāti Taua Talanoa session, a community-based event. That was really good. There will be a follow-up on that. I had a group of senior students in from Plymouton School, and I have to say they had a great time sitting where you were. They all used the microphone and the gavel, and it was a good event. The wheelchair rugby last week, I have to say that was a highlight for me. They are really rough, and a lot of them tip over. I did not realise just how keen those people were. So that was a really good event. We had World Refugee Day last Saturday, and we had a huge turnout at the arena. They brought them out on buses from town. Then we had the Porirua Multicultural drop-in racism session with Sir Matthew Ray, and they're hoping to get something out of that, so they're going to come to council about that. And then we had our Civic and Mural Awards, which was a fantastic way to celebrate our volunteers. And of course, Wendy and I finished it off with the future of local government announcement next week, a large piece of paper, but let's see what happens come elections. So that was my month. Taku, have you got a report for us?
It's, the building of the new ferry terminal. It's starting to sort of ramp up on both sides of the Cook Strait, and Ngāti Tonga, Ngāti Toa and Te Atiawa are in consultation around naming the two new ferries that are on their way. But more importantly, the establishment of the new ferry terminals is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's about all on the home front. You'll get the most of it all off Helmet.
Thank you. Okay, committee recommendations. Councillor Trillin.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. I move that Council adopt the committee recommendations of Te Puna Kōrero from the 25th of May 2023 and the 8th of June 2023.
Have a seconder, please. Councillor Hayward. Any issues? All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Councillor Waddle.
I move that the Council adopt the recommendations from the Audit and Risk Committee meeting on the 15th of June 2023.
Seconded by Councillor Hayward. Any issues? All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Right, our first report, 11.1, adoption of the annual plan. I'm going to move it to put it on the table. Seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion on this? No? Yes, Councillor Philo.
So I've got questions actually.
Okay.
It's on page 63. Can officers just offer an example of what a park charge is, of what an internal charge is within the library? Oh, sorry, no, that's not weird. It was page 74. I'm curious to know why the stormwater has decreased in the staff payments and suppliers when the other three waters have more heavily increased.
Through the Mayor. That's in relation to the investment that we did in the three waters, the additional money, which is going into water, portable water and wastewater. And what it does is it allocates all the costs across, that's an allocation across all the outputs of council.
Okay. Page 77, what's an example of other operating funding for wastewater?
It'd be nothing that meets the criteria above. So we allocate out finance costs, we allocate out internal charges, but there'd be operating costs that would come through. So that ranges across, it'd be pretty much any cost that isn't an interest cost or a finance cost. So it can range across all types of expenditure.
Sorry, this was funding, other funding, not costs.
Also, application. So you're talking about the application of operating funding.
Yeah, it says other operating funding for wastewater.
So that is actually where. So So we're talking. Can you give me exactly what line?
So under sources of operating funding, you've got general rates, and at the bottom of that, it's got other operating. Under funding.
You want come through if you want to. Yep.
Through the chair.
Sure.
Mayor, sorry, hi.
It's all right.
The other operating, that funding income is two things. We don't consolidate, so we haven't taken out, but it's got the amount which the wastewater treatment plant is reimbursed by both council and Wellington City. So the costs, in terms of the cost, are still in here at 100%, and we bring back into here also is the revenue from the wastewater activity of council and the amount which we get funded from Wellington City for running the wastewater treatment plant.
Cool. So it's it's to do with Wellington City, their funding.
That's in there as well, yes.
Ah, okay, cool. Thank you, Graham. I've got a couple others. So on the same page, on page 77, the 9 million to meet the additional demand. Hold on. No, that wasn't my question. So the capital projects that are listed for the Wellington Water, the 4 growth projects, I reference this to the appendix that you gave us, Wendy, for Wellington Water projects for this coming financial year, and it amounted to 300K. So I'm just curious what the extra 9 million to meet additional demand is for.
I don't have the list of projects with me, sorry, but I can get that for you.
Yeah, no, I have the list. Wendy supplied it for me in an email. So within the list, there was 4 growth projects, and they came to 300K. But here, so just to clarify, to meet additional demand, that would be considered a growth project, would it not?
It's almost certainly renewals. So our capital are made up of renewals, improvement to level of service, and will that be right, Graham?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't to replace existing assets be renewals?
That should be.
Um,
No, I'd have to get the list.
Yeah, we can come back to you
Yeah.
on that.
Okay. Also, on page 90, I note that transport is down 3.4 million in the funding from last year. Do you have an indication if there are any projects this year or perhaps in the future that might be affected by that drop?
That wouldn't really alter what we're setting here.
No, I'm just wanting to know for
That's in relation to Kinaparu
okay.
and the timing of the funding of that from Wakikitahi, and then it follows through into the expenditure.
Okay. Page 98, can you confirm if the bulk water from Greater Wellington is included in our rates increase? Just trying to get understanding about that.
Yes, it
Yeah?
is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's something different than what's saying. What is page 98 in relation to?
Page 98. That is when we send out the rate invoice, we rate for both Porirua City and we also rate on behalf of Greater Wellington as well.
Okay.
So that is for their rate increase for the rates which we collect on their behalf.
Okay, so it is all included in this budget, but just it'll be
No,
invoiced separately.
no. This is when a ratepayer gets their rate invoice, it includes Greater Wellington rates as well as Porirua City rates.
So not just bulk funding, it's in another,
So
in bulk water funding.
This is the rates which we collect for Greater Wellington, and Greater Wellington yet haven't. Just like this council, will be having a meeting either today or tomorrow, setting their rate increase. And so when we invoice ratepayers, we're collecting both Porirua City rates and also Greater Wellington rates.
Cool, thank you, I get that now. And on page 104, just with regards to the GST, just curious, are you expecting an overall refund of 3.8 million in GST? And are you able to give us some context to that, please?
That's correct. That's based on the capital program. So as we've got quite a large capital program in the annual plan, we'll get GST back on our expenditure for that.
Okay, great. Cool. Okay, and last one is on page 100, which is the gain on sale of assets. Does this include the property disposal that was in our unconfirmed minutes today? Or is that under the comprehension income, other comprehension income on the same page?
That would be the disposal portfolio. So in there, it would be that we've got currently assets available for sale, which is 10 Hagley, 7 Selby. So there's a number of ones in there that are in there.
So that's for the gain of sales, the
Gain on sale.
22,000.
Yep.
So that's 222,000.
So because we're required to value them up so that they're available for sale. So and it's any profit above that available sale, and we're naturally conservative on estimating what our available for sale is.
So that's the profit on them. Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Oh, yes, Councillor Ford.
Sorry, just a quick comment, I think. Yeah, I get it. This is just a tick box exercise. We're just rubber stamping. But I've been up since 4 a.m. with a sick child, and the other child had like a 7 a.m. training. And then I woke up as well to a close friend's father had passed away. I guess my point is that we all come to this table with different circumstances that affect us, including our people that we represent. They've all got personal circumstances, and I'll reiterate what I said when we deliberated on this. We have been desperate to get people's feedback on. We do this exercise year on, year on, year on, year on. And every time the majority of feedback comes back, and we do our best to go against what that majority of feedback that comes back to us. So I'm struggling to vote in favour of and I feel like I'm Ewan Morrell, and I'm going to go, no, sorry, I can't vote in favour of moving the annual plan, because I just feel that our people are struggling. Their wage increases are not moving at the same level as the cost of living, as the rate increases. So I just needed to voice that opinion and say that I've got to push back on this tick box, because nothing changes for our people if we don't push back as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. I would just like to remind you that we had, 250 people? The balance of our residents have not written in. It's hard in tough times, and I agree it is hard, and it's hard to make these decisions, so thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Trillin.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Baker. I guess I just wanted to speak to the fact that obviously that this whole annual plan process has been really hard. I'm really proud of the work that we have done as a council, and the work that our officers have done in terms of where we've landed. I don't know if anyone is happy with exactly where we've landed, because it's tough, and I think everyone who's doing annual plans at the moment will be very similar. But I think the process we've gone through has done a really good job at striking that balance in terms of doing what's right. And I think back to the comments made by Councillor Hayward during our deliberations about how the decisions we're making aren't necessarily the most popular decisions at the moment, but they are the right ones. And when I think about the investment that we need to do into our harbour in particular, and looking after our water systems to make sure that we are protecting our harbour and restoring it, which is one of our key priorities, I think the investments that we're making are sound ones. I talked about in the deliberations how I personally would have preferred for us to wear as much of this on rates as possible without extra debt, but I think through the process we've gone through and where we've landed, that we're making investments that are important, and those burdens that our ratepayers are going to be feeling, we need to do as much as possible to minimise that in the long term, not just the short term. And that's why I back what we're doing, and I think it's the right thing to do, and I'll be voting in favour of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, I'd like to echo the sentiments of Councillor Trillin there. These are hard times, and we've made some hard decisions here, and I refer people to the message from the Mayor and the Chief Executive in this annual plan. It sums it up perfectly. It sums up the plight we're in, the problems we have, and how we've dealt with it. It would be easy to do what councils in the past have done and do nothing, but then it's future generations that cop the flack, and I think we're making a hard decision but a good decision here today, and I support it.
Thank you. Councillor, be happy?
Yeah, go back to actually what the rates increase was for, and that's for investment in water infrastructure. You can only drive around places like the East when it rains for an hour and realise exactly on the ground what we are investing in. We're investing in people. It's not just the environment, it's not just the harbour, which is just as important. We're actually investing in people. So for that, I am in favour of this, and I will be supporting it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora koutou. Well, first of all, I would point out to say thank you to the officers as part of preparing the material, as part of their efforts to engage with the community and prepare that material for us to review, as well as those who gave submissions and came in and spoke to those submissions. I'm going to tell a story about a woman named Naomi. You'll know Naomi, some of you will know, Finn's partner. We've known each other for a few years. We caught up after the Te Puna Kōrero meeting and talked about rates increases. And she said something that I thought was really important. She said that when you've got almost nothing, it doesn't matter whether it's a 9 or a 6 or an 11 when it comes to the percent rates increase. And she's right. The pain is going to go up for everybody. Everybody comes with their own circumstances, as Councillor Ford pointed out, but everybody is going to be paying more. I'd point out that lots of things are going up as well, including instant noodles, which went up by 19% in the past year. And for those who have very little, instant noodles will probably be something that's going to be copious in their shopping basket. I am also mindful, though, that as a council, while we take in that concern and pain, we also have to make decisions on behalf of the whole. And that's why we have to make unpopular decisions at time to time. We are bound to take good advice and guidance as an evidence-based approach from those who have qualified experience in this space. I'm going to read out something which is quite interesting. I'm going to read this. OPEX costs should be met from operating revenue. If the community wants certain services and goods, it has to pay for them. Whether that is privately or via a group approach, like a council, rates as the operating revenue method should be the key determinant of meeting OPEX. That quote was Brad Olson, who has come into this council to give their guidance and analysis on economic matters. We have invited him to speak to the public on these sorts of matters as well. Have we not learnt anything from COVID that we should be taking experienced and knowledgeable individuals' qualified opinions over our uninformed reckons? So we have some consequences down the line in a year's time. As was put in the annual report, 23% was what was needed to cover just what we are doing right now. We didn't put a 23% rate increase in on average across the city. Now, the bill will come due, and it's going to come due next year. Prudent management requires us to think about not just about the burdens on everyone, but also about what the long-term impacts to the city is. Borrowing is a part of that. And I hope that every individual takes Brad's sage advice next year. I'm not happy with the way that we've got to where we got to, because everybody's not going to be happy about it. But in a strange way, it's probably the best outcome that could have come from this. So I'm going to support, but I am reluctant. Kia ora.
Thank you. Anybody else before I put the motion? Oh, you're back, Councillor Liggett. You had frozen there for a while. Yes, Councillor Philo.
So I want to start by, tautoko what Councillor Ford said. I think we have heard several approaches for in order to reduce the rate increase, right? We've had officers come up with savings, cutting costs, and using debt to fund. Looking and reviewing the annual plan, I've seen at least 2 departments that have had cuts in their staffing costs. That's the economic development and also transport. So cuts and sacrifices are being made. And I think that this is pretty much what our people, our residents, are also doing in their household budgets. And that's because of the cost of living crisis. Everyone's trying to do their bit just to get through this really challenging time in our country right now. But the only one who seems to not really be in this waka with us, the only ones who don't seem to be pivoting, making any financial adjustments, is Wellington Water. Yes, costs have gone up, right? We know this. 26% was our our insurance increase. We've had interest costs go up. We've had our bulk water go up, and our overall operating budget has gone up 14% since last year. And I think if you give examples like these to our people, they'd understand that, because they're going through it too. But I think they'd be hard-pressed to understand Wellington Water's 67% increase in their operating budget. 67%. That's astronomically huge compared to these other costs. And I'm really struggling with that. despite how many times we've asked for clarification around these costs, why is it so high? All we've kind of got is, well, their costs have gone up too. But if we have to explain, if I had to comprehensively explain to our residents why has it gone up 67%, I really couldn't give an answer. And that bothers me, because that's our job, is to know that, to be prudent, to ask those questions. Now, have Wellington Water made cuts? Have they made savings? We don't know, because they haven't bothered to come to us. They're a council-owned operating organisation, and they didn't bother to come in and offer us an explanation. They did to Wellington. They did to Wellington City Council, and they were held somewhat accountable there. And I know you say that, Wendy, that they've been held accountable here too, but does it seem likely that they are, with a 67% increase, still sitting on the table to pass on to our residents? Yes, water is a priority. It's a core priority for us, and we have to ensure that we continue to do better in this area. We do. That's our responsibility. But have you also considered that it seems irresponsible of us to not ask enough questions of Wellington Water? Ask, why is it so high compared to the other costs increased? Some sense of accountability, negotiation. Maybe the price wouldn't have been so high. Really, at the end of the day, the buck does stop with us. And I don't believe enough due diligence has been done in this area, and that's why I'm not supporting it.
I'll get you to reply, Joe, but I totally disagree with what you've said. I sit on Wellington Water. We own Wellington Water, and yes, they've had costs going up with staff, piping and everything else. We own that organisation along with everybody else, and we do get the answers. Joe, would you
They
just
haven't
like
been
to
passed on to
reply?
us, though.
The papers are there. We sit there.
So through the mayor, so I'm taking that your 67% is the change in the 8.4 million base funding that we had for Wellington Water, plus the additional 5.7 that's gone into Wellington Water.
Yes, Joe, and that was what was in our workshop in February. That's what we were given, those figures.
So just wanted, so within that, 2.1 million of that is the Three Waters Better Off funding. So that's actually funding from the
Better Off funding.
and that was actually to lift the level of service. And the rates funding of the 1.8 and the borrowing of 1.8 was to actually lift the level of service and maintain the level of service. So it's additional services that we're actually receiving, and you'll see that in relation to the when you see the graphs on the leaks across the city and how that's improving. So that's the breakdown.
I'm sorry, we were told that there was no additional, wasn't that right?
But it's maintaining the level of service. The level of service would have dropped if we did not invest that money in there. And that's what you see when you compare the different councils, where you see that we are maintaining and getting on top of our leaks, where there's other councils that is.
They've chosen to reduce their service. Any other comments from anyone? Is it Ross, is it? No? No? Oh, sorry, Councillor Johnson.
Look, I'd just like to make a comment that I'll be supporting the 9.71%. I think when I was running for council, there was a strong voice asking for us to maintain and look after our infrastructure. And in this instance, our Three Waters is what we're asking them to do. I've chosen to pay to support the increased payment on the basis that we need to keep our people safe. It's one of our priorities. And part of that in difficult times is letting them get to work and look after their families and move them around the town. So when various water infrastructures are not being maintained, which would have been the case if we hadn't funded this, we start to run into other risks that are threatening our communities. And as we have been very clear about about around this table, our vulnerable communities. We know that some of our communities have old, ageing infrastructure, and we just need to look at our previous reports to look at the current state to understand why we are increasing rates to look after the safety of a range of different suburbs in this city. I think we've made a good, sound decision. We've looked at a range of options. The officers have done an outstanding job in providing us with a variation of ways that we can look at this rates increase. And so for me personally, when I look at this situation, we have no choice but to pay the extra for Wellington Waters. I believe that Wellington Waters have given us adequate information, and we also need to take a listen at some stage and draw the line on other professionals, specialists in their area, to give us advice. And as a role, we can also question people, and I think that's been done adequately for us to reach this decision today. Thanks.
Thank you. Taku?
I guess in the deliberations, as you sort of confirm and go to a collective and I guess a free vote, I think there is an element that Izzy has raised, and I think we all feel that. I think there's no doubt that we all have empathy for those that have very little and that it's going to affect. But at some stage, I guess we've got to make a decision as a council to move forward in the best interest of the city as a whole. But there's no doubt that there is a sector of the community that suffer regardless. And hopefully we have an element of empathy within the vote that you're actually going to put on the table to move this kaupapa forward. Kia ora.
Thank you. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. No other speakers. So all those in favour? All those against?
Aye.
Sorry, we'll do, yep, thank you, Ross. All those against? Councillor Philo, Councillor Nalo and Councillor Ford. So that is passed. Thank you very much. I move to 11.3, the strategic risk radar. Going to move, sorry, I moved on too quickly. Setting of the rates, sorry. 11.2, I ticked off the other one. Okay, so I've moved that to put it on the table, seconded by Councillor Duncan. No issues here. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. 11.3, strategic risk radar. Moving that to put it on the table, seconded by Councillor Waddle. Sorry, beat you to it. Yeah, open for discussion. We've had this report come through Audit and Risk. I have to say it's really detailed and really good. Okay, all those in favour? All those in favour? Those against?
Aye.
Carried. We move into public excluded. I'll move that.
Sorry, point of order. You've got our...
Yeah, I have to move to go into first.
Oh, was he in public excluded?
Not yet. I moved to go in and then he leaves.
Oh.
So I moved to go in, seconded by Councillor Ford. Now I can ask him, I'm sorry, you have to leave the room now.